Thank you so much. I think the context of this is the fact that purpose today has come at the center of conversation, and more so after the COVID era, where purpose is becoming at the center of every storytelling that we're trying to do. More so with the fact that today audiences are getting very diverse, and each organization today has looked at the purpose lens as they're trying to create preference for them in the marketplace. So today only performance metrics is not the decision maker in the eyes of the stakeholders, which are just not your customers anymore. There are a varied lot that looks at you today. And I think to set that context in, I want to just start off with the fact that traditionally the conventional thought has been that business of business is doing business, right? And how do contemporary business today manage the messaging and communications balance between the traditional success metrics that we have today and the top line, bottom line, and yet appeal to the core value of the society that they are engaging with, especially keeping in mind that there is a diverse set of audiences that everybody's catering to from a communication perspective and also at a boardroom level.
That's a long question, and I'll try and answer it to the best of my ability. The business of business is business. Who said this? Milton Friedman. When did he say it? In 1970. What was the business scenario like in 1970? It was traditional in the sense that you mentioned it. It was about basic financial results, what you could offer to your shareholders, and how much profit a company could actually garner, in whatever way it could. Milton Friedman also did say, though, that corporates should not be unethical. In maximizing profits, they should be ethical and rule-bound. Switch just to about 29 years later, 1999. Who comes in? John Elkington. What is the name of the book that he writes? Cannibals with Forks, the triple bottom line of the 21st century. 1999 is the turn of the century. In this book, he brings about the concept of the 3 Ps: planet, profit, people. And he puts profit at the bottom, people at the top, and then planet, then profit. So in the 3 last decades of the last century, the perception of companies and what they do changes dramatically. Financial results now appear to the larger realm of stakeholders as opposed to shareholders in a completely different perspective. Companies and corporates now become accountable to whom? To the society at large. And see how the narrative changes. Today at Davos, or wherever you see, when business leaders talk, they don't start talking about the tremendous financial results they've achieved, but the dialogue, the monologue, the trialogue, whatever you call it, is all about what good they are doing to society. What are they doing for planet? What are they giving back to the larger world? And therein lies the idea of purpose and the narrative related to that purpose.
I just want to quickly jump into the fact that as businesses are for business, and most companies give higher weightage of purpose communication to external audiences, right? And with most companies today dealing with the great resignation, where does purpose hold for internal stakeholders? How do companies look at that? Or is purpose only an external phenomena? And how do we make our internal stakeholders core to the purpose-led storyline that we're trying to build externally?
First, the important part is determine the purpose. Internally, the company must be clear on what its purpose is. And purpose beyond profit. This is important. I'm not writing a narrative on my last the last 3 years, 3 months financial results. I need to determine a purpose beyond profit. And when the leadership determines that purpose, it needs to drive the message down to the last person in the hierarchy. Because internal communication and internal understanding of that purpose must literally be ubiquitous within that company. If every human being within the company doesn't get the message, there will be no narrative. There won't be a tale to tell. So the determination of the purpose, the internal communication of that purpose across everybody must be crystal clear and reiterated time after time after time. Give you an example. Mr. Anil Agarwal from our Vedanta group, wherever he speaks at a platform, there is no talk of what the financial results were. He says, what do I stand for? What does my company stand for? And we are very clear that we stand for doing good for people and the planet. That is my purpose, that is my commitment. And all the years I've spent from the backwoods of Bihar to now the corridors of London, I understand that I must have a purpose, and I must understand that everyone in the group is completely captivated by that purpose. If you don't, leave my company. Now see the commitment there. Then the narrative can be told, because I understand the purpose, I can talk about.
We had a long discussion yesterday and today about this topic, right? And we wanted to kind of define, when we look at purpose and we look at companies which have been around for 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, right? And we see that there's a strong footing of purpose behind why they do what they do. Are there lessons to be learned for companies that are now emerging? And is it bad to have purpose which is basically saying, I want to do good numbers? And I'm asking this question specifically from the point of view of companies that are now setting up, the young startups, the unicorns, who are going to be future of this organization, future of the country. And as they develop their organizations, is it okay to be looking at 3 years, 4 years window, or they should be looking at 10 years, 20 years when they define their purpose as they move forward?
See, let me be very clear. All this talk of purpose should not diminish the fact that profit is not a dirty word. If you do not make profit, what is the use of the purpose? You will never convert it into anything worthwhile. If the purpose is to do good, you can't do it with just empty pockets. So I'm very clear, even as I drafted the CSR law, as I was writing section 135, as we were bringing the bill in to Parliament, we were very clear that first the company must have internal resources. Otherwise, how do you commit to doing good? So let me start by saying that profit is not a dirty word. At the end of the day, you must be driven by the fact that there are bottom lines. Having achieved that though, let's understand this. You are sitting here before me. What are you a combination of? Not just what the audience is looking at, because they're looking at your body. But you also have a soul. You are a combination of body plus soul. What's the soul? That is the purpose. If I am just an exterior without an interior, then what am I? A glorified, walking, talking mummy. A soulless, organic entity. And for me, therefore, the purpose is the soul. The body is the company. And then from there you drive the narrative.
Yeah, but a lot of people might say that in the initial years, let me run with the body, the soul can come in later. I can look at the purpose.
Are you born, therefore, without a soul?
Good part, but a lot of companies still say
are you born without a soul?
Particular question is from young organizations' perspective. They said, let me be number-centric right now. We'll always look at doing good look at the society at a larger level, but initially let me just get the numbers going so that I can get my funding in and work.
And that argument is accepted. As I told you in the beginning, if you do not generate some numbers, there's no way that you can actually give back. So I will not say that that's the wrong tack. You need to generate profits, you need to generate numbers, you need to have some element of net worth before you can commit. So if the purpose is a developing story, it's good. And I would say to young leaders that at least keep some purpose in your mind, even if initially it is incipient. But hold it there. When you have the means to achieve that purpose, then go for it.
Sometimes purpose communications are personal and emotional, right? And role of purpose-led communications for businesses is to ensure that they create a strong bond and emotional appeal with their customers, employees, and stakeholders. Just your thoughts on this.
Interesting about this emotion part. You know, we look at these OTT platforms, and we look at Netflix, and we look at, you know, Prime and whatever this thing there are. And there are any number of shows there. But when you come to storytelling, I don't know if many of you have seen Panchayat. Just a simple village story. The way the narrative is designed is so beautiful. It has no embellishments, it has no glamour, it has no, you know, violence quotient. It's not commercial at all. And when I saw the first few episodes of Panchayat, I said to myself, I'm loving this, but I don't know whether the rest of India would even tune in. I was so shocked when I saw season 2 actually happening, because I never believed there would be one. And now it's the biggest happening show. We're going into season 3. So when you talk about narrative and purpose, if you can tell it well, if you can tell the story in a simplistic manner which appeals to people's hearts and souls, the word that you used, emotion, I like that very much. Because purpose is what? Is emotion. If you don't feel it within you, there is no purpose. The soul is the one that is associated with the purpose.
I just want to jump on to say that aligning purpose today with markets you operate in. And how do businesses ensure that their purpose communications are aligned with national mandates for better alignment, right? And most businesses today are looking at that very closely. And how does one look at business operations and then communications around that?
Yeah, that's actually 2 questions rolled into one.
And I'm sure you faced that question in 2013 also when you came out with the CSR, Section 135.
Yeah, I understand that. One part is that what is a national mandate? Who determines it? And the national mandates, if you ask me, they change from government to government. Most people in state administrations, like when I was in the state of Orissa, my mandate is what Mr. Patnaik said for me. Whether there was a national mandate from the central government didn't matter, because I was with the state government. So the state government's programs were the ones that I implemented. When I came to the central government, for me, the national mandates became important. So in a way, wherever you are positioned, you look at mandates. And the worry about mandates is that there are so many mandates that you don't know what to do with them. Now, if you count the number of schemes the government has, it's well in excess of about 130. And you expect one company to look at even the mandates is an impossibility. So, correct, align with mandate, yes, but use the ones that your company, your businesses, your operations most closely relate to. And then strategize so that you pick the right mandates for the company. Then the narrative begins to flow from there.
I just want to quickly jump on this whole question around value exchange, right? There's value exchange to customers, and then value exchange to society, right? And how do businesses look at fine-tuning their messages for that, right? how do they move beyond, say, customer value to society and still retain that value exchange that they want to have for customers, right?
See, value exchange has now become, because we moved on from shareholder to stakeholder. And when you look at stakeholder, it's the larger ecosystem. So what is your company offering by way of value, or value exchange as you call it, to the stakeholders that you see? So even your supply chain are also stakeholders. Society at large, your partners, your vendors, anything that the company does in partnership with anyone else, there is a value exchange. And when you use the word exchange, it's a two-way process. There is a give, there is a give back. There is a take, there's a take away. And therefore, in that exchange, the partners need to be convinced that in this exchange, there is value for me. Both partners. If I don't see value, there is no exchange. So when companies engage with partners, that exchange becomes part of what you now call the value chain. And that's when you spread the message.
I wanted to also kind of ask you around customer loyalty, right? Are customers today loyal? And how much leeway do customers give to companies to allow to do that mistake, that one mistake that spoils your reputation? And where does purpose stand for companies in the center of that conversation, where you might be a brand that a customer is using right now, but also writing against you on social media tomorrow? And how does company look at purpose to stem that from a reputation perspective? Is there a connect? There's no connect?
No, I would say there's a strong connect. You can't preach ethics and then be unethical. Now, why did Volkswagen take such a huge hit? They were talking about ethics all the time. The quality of the cars, the way the kind of good that they were doing for the planet, and all the time they were using cheating devices to beat emission standards. They paid billions of dollars as fines for doing this. And yet they were all the time talking about ethics. So the company got a terrible hit in terms of the ethical standards they had. Now, you said one mistake or perception. So it's a bit like glass. If it is scratched or broken at some parts, very, very difficult to repair, and it takes a long time. Take the case of Maggi noodles. Out of nowhere, the FSSI serves them with a notice saying you've got high lead content in Maggi noodles. Now, they've been serving it for years. People have been consuming it for years. And people are still loving it today, much after that incident. So, what saves you? What saves the company in the end? Because something of that nature, a reputational damage, can take you under in seconds. And that's where communication, that's where narrative, that's where storytelling, the power of it sustains you, embraces you, holds you, stabilizes you, allows you to stay. And so that is always a work in process. It must continually, subliminally, always exist. Because your survival and your strength is that narrative, is that story. When hits come, and they inevitably will, there cannot be a business at which, as you said, rivals or social media or something will come at you from completely unexpected sources. And you will be caught unawares no matter how much you try. Then what holds you? This that you spoke about. That purpose, that storytelling, that embeddedness of the purpose in the organization, that's the bonding tool.
We have some time, and I said that I will not, but I will.
Please.
You are acclaimed as the father of corporate social responsibility, right? And when the act from 2010 for PSUs to 2013 December, And I was fortunate enough to be there when you announced it to the media. We were speaking about that session where I was sitting down when you first announced the CSR, the Section 135. I know we've very less time left, but I just wanted you to give an observation of where that journey has been now, from 2013 December to 2022, and are there any broad lessons for organizations today who are, or experts, corporate communications, CSR leaders, to look into from that journey to now, and where do we are? I know it's go on, but if you kind of try and, I've already got a time's up there, so if you could do it in a minute, that would be wonderful.
I'll try and wrap it up in a minute or two. 3 important things I'd like to say. This 8-year journey from 2014 to 2022, what are chiefly the takeaways? First, when I was announcing this policy, the corporates came very hard at me. I was their target, their favorite whipping boy, and they frankly said, who is this guy, Dr. Chatterjee, preaching CSR to us? And what for? If government needs money, let it be just a tax. We're happy to pay 2%, and so on and so forth. Today, look at the perception change. CSR is no longer seen as a challenge, but as an opportunity. Right? Takeaway 1. Takeaway 2. Who implements CSR? The NGO, the civil society organization. When we were talking to corporates, and my vision of CSR was this triangle, this triad: government, the regulator and the facilitator; corporate, the funder and the oversighter; and the implementer, the NGO or the civil society organization. Now, at the bottom of the pyramid, between the corporate and the civil society organization, the trust deficit was incredible. Corporates would say, well, NGOs are fly-by-nighters, there's a board here today, gone there tomorrow. And the NGOs and civil society organizations would say, corporates, basically they're profit machines, all they care about is the bottom line, why the hell should they care about CSR? Today, 8 years down the line, that deficit has narrowed considerably. There's a dialogue between corporates and NGOs. In the formulation of what we do in Vedanta, in the year's calendar for CSR, we talk to our NGO partners and ask them, in the next year, what's the better way of doing it? What's another way of doing it? What's another program we can take? And we take them on board because we know that at the ground, the realities are known to them. And the last part is this, that today decisions on CSR are taken at the highest levels of the company. It's not a backroom thing. So the famous Chatterjee aphorism, CSR from backroom to boardroom, is a reality today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chatterjee. It's always an honor listening to you, meeting you. So thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen.